Welcome to episode 13 of Rewind Heroes. I'm your co-host, Greg Compton.
And I'm your other co-host, Dan Gaines. This is going to be your weekly video podcast where we talk everything, movies, television, basically anything that we find cool.
Exactly. And normally we go through a newsreel and kind of talk about stories, but we're going to keep this kind of short, get straight to the point. This week we're going to hit a review on X-Men Apocalypse. So you want to get right to it?
Let's do it. All right, Greg, so we had the chance to catch this earlier this week, and just was curious, what were your overall thoughts of the film?
Go see Civil War again. Here's the thing. X-Men was really my comic growing up. Of course, the 90s iteration of it. So, in like all teams, it went through its changes. So obviously, I still want to see X-Men with Gambits, and I like bringing in Psylocke, but there's. We'll get into all this individually. My overall thought on this film, it had a lot of amazing vignettes. It felt like a movie made of vignettes, but they were all stitched together and couldn't really make a cohesive story. And I felt like they were rewriting histories of characters to kind of fit in this arc and forcing people in. That's kind of my overall take on it. What was your initial reaction to it?
Yeah, I think overall for me, I went into the movie kind of exhausted with the X-Men movies anyway. We've been getting X-Men films since the year 2000. 16 years.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think the worst review I can give it would be that I went into the movie not that excited about it, and I left the movie not that excited about it.
Yeah.
So that's probably not the most positive overlook, but you know what? Let's get into some of the specifics on what we did and didn't like about it.
Exactly. Well, first of all, Apocalypse, Oscar Isaac, what were your thoughts on the Apocalypse character, the handling of it?
I think this was probably my biggest gripe with the film. Oscar Isaacs is a great actor. He was phenomenal, obviously, with Poe Dameron. He's been in a lot of other great films. And I think he has a lot of potential to be a big movie star moving forward. But this character did not give him a chance to shine. I mean, he was a guy in a mask. He barely moved. Yeah. It was a very stiff character, and it felt like we were watching a villain from a movie in the 80s, not a movie set in the 80s. What about you?
I totally agree. Apocalypse is a character larger than life, and they wanted to portray that because they talked about it, and he has all these multiple powers, which you see here and there, and it takes forever to take him out. But I felt like it was meandering, it was slow for a guy this strong, needing all his horsemen to help him out, which did everything. I don't know, I felt like it was lumbering. Maybe that's the term, lumbering.
I think that's a great way.
It was stiff. The best part is near the end when it's the mental battle and he becomes literally larger than life, crushing people. Yeah. That's the first life I saw really breathed into this character. Yeah. That's what I wanted to see. Now, I don't remember much of the origin of that character. Like I read the 90s run for a bit of X-Men, and really Magneto is the biggest villain in that, and Mojo, some of those things. Yeah. So I don't know a ton about the character, but I don't recall that this was his origin. So I could be wrong, but I think they've kind of worked in this whole thing just to build him up. I don't know. He didn't look. He needed to be more menacing and imposing if he was going to be that powerful.
To me, if you're going to name the movie Apocalypse, it needs to be something that's going to blow your mind, and it was very disappointing.
I get a stronger sense of intense power from Thanos in the Disney built-up Marvel than I get with this.
100% agree.
So, other characters, what were you thinking? We introduced a lot of characters' origins and some
people
new people.
We were familiar with the first time we'd seen them in this era. I mean, Jean Grey, Storm. We got Cyclops.
Nightcrawler's back.
Nightcrawler was back. For me, I thought the portrayal of Nightcrawler looked pretty cool. He visually didn't bring a whole lot to the film.
Right.
Probably out of all the characters we were introduced, for me, Jean Grey was done extremely well. I liked the way she was portrayed. Again, I don't have the history with the comics.
Right.
So you may have a completely different opinion on that. But for me, she worked, and I found myself liking that character and wanting to see more of her. But what about you?
I like the Scott Summers character a little better.
Okay.
I feel good about him actually being in Ready Player One.
I was curious what you thought.
Yeah, and here's my problem with the Jean Grey. And that actress, she's in Game of Thrones. I've always felt that actress is just very stiff, kind of monotone. But really, the Jean Grey character was never, she was a powerful character, but in the comics, it wasn't like, she didn't exude personality, I ever thought. Okay. So, she did a fine job with the character. I do think near the end, how many times do you have to kick the horse to tell it to move? I mean, help a brother out is basically what they were yelling at for her. And then she explodes with a power that you see.
It was too much.
That's in X2, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is something new. Well, it's not if you've just done it here.
Not to mention, why did they have to introduce her in this film and she became the Phoenix all in one movie?
And then went back. I don't know. I thought that was an odd way to do it. So yeah, I had some issues with that. I do think Quicksilver was the bright spot in this film.
As he was in Days of Future Past.
He always is.
Steals every scene he's in.
Yeah, I think, tell your mama's baby daddy who you are, because I think that could have helped things. I thought that was an awkward scene.
That was awkward.
I thought you could help the situation here, because the guy hates that he lost an arrow. That's a Magneto thing we'll talk about in a bit. The other thing, some of these characters, I felt like you took Angel, who had been introduced before. Is it the same actor? I couldn't.
I don't think
it couldn't have been because of the younger actor. But here's my thing, and I don't remember, it's been a while since I've seen some of these others. Have they, with the X-Men, like Days of Future Past, did they rewrite history? Because if not, you've taken Angel, made him Archangel, and he goes back to Angel?
This can be the other gripe. I feel like we're being very negative, but overall this wasn't that great of a film. I think that was what Days of Future Past did. They had Last Stand, which was a complete nightmare of a film. So they thought, oh, here's what we'll do. We'll erase all of it and act like it didn't happen.
Okay, then
I don't know.
That's the only way. And if you're going to make him Archangel, too, the thing is, I kind of wanted the mask and everything, too. And everybody got these costumes, and I felt like his character, I felt like when they find him, he's broken his wing, and he's just listening to, like, punk. I don't know if it was the Sex Pistols or who he was listening to, but I just felt like, hey, check it out. Billy Idol is Angel. That was a problem. I feel like you wasted a massive opportunity with Psylocke. Now she kind of walks away with the thought that maybe she'll come back because she is part of that 90s X-Men that I love, where they took the character from a white British chick, made her Asian, and all of a sudden she's, so that's kind of where they went. But I felt like that was a wasted opportunity from Olivia Munn's character. She just was dark
she had
and
5 lines.
Yeah, it wasn't much. Storm wasn't much. It was the Magneto show, which it always is anymore with these.
But before it got to the Magneto show, the one area we wanted to bring up was it wouldn't be an X-Men movie without Hugh Jackman being portrayed as Logan or the Wolverine.
Right.
I wasn't a huge fan of this. We kind of talked off camera. Let them know what you thought about that segment.
It's weird. Like, I thought it was a nice touch to show, hey, what else is going on here? He was Weapon X. I mean, the mask, the kind of, costume, all the stuff going through him, the wire stuff is pretty well brought out of the comic. I mean, it reminds me of the drawings. So I don't mind showing that. That was an interesting thing. I almost thought it was a nice touch. I didn't like the fact that it was Jean Grey, and these guys are the ones that break him out, and it's like a foreshadowing. Oh, I hope we never see much of that guy again.
That line
killed it, and I felt like bringing him in was good, but I also thought it was a scene that they could also put in the trailer, which they did at the end when they were getting mixed reviews to try to boost up ticket sales, and that was my problem with it.
That was what I kept going back. Like, it's like, hey, you may not have liked the last X-Men, but we're going to throw him in because you know what? You liked him in that movie. He's in this one too.
In a way, it was a nice nod and would have fit in if you didn't think that it was forced for ticket sales. If it didn't feel like that. It just
felt out of place to me.
Yeah.
It didn't further the story in any way.
No, it was a nice touch. I will say there were other minor characters that were good. When Angel's, thinking of small characters, Angel's battle at the beginning, he takes down the really huge guy.
Oh, yeah.
In the dark suit with the white or the yellow stripe, that was the Blob.
I thought that was who that was.
So there were some nice little nods. There were some nods.
Cool.
But overall, Storm, I felt, was almost a non-character. I don't know if that's her origin, maybe, but
it felt like they just put her in.
When I started reading the comics, she was an established character, so I don't know her origin. But I felt like they were rewriting people just to fit them into a story. And hey, let's see some characters people haven't seen yet. Still no Gambit because he comes around the 90s, but so did Psylocke, at least that iteration.
Yeah, it just overall to me feels like they do not, and I think this is across all the X-Men films, they don't do a good job of introducing us to new characters and letting us know who they are and what they're about. Yeah. It's kind of just, they're these people, they expect the audience knows enough about them that they'll figure it out, but the general public probably doesn't. am probably in that group where I don't know who most of these people are, and they don't explain it, and you're just expected to go, oh, okay, that's their power, we'll run with it.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember my old history of this stuff.
And see, you shouldn't have to.
I know.
You're going to a movie, you shouldn't have to know that.
And every movie is also, when we're talking about characters, it's the Magneto's torment. And that bothers me. We know that he has good in him, but he's a villain. In the comics, we don't keep going back to mass destruction and then, hey, I'm going to do something good, and then next film. The comics, I don't think, quite do that roller coaster ride. It's there's the good in him, but you get the bad more than... Yeah, the vignette with his family is probably my favorite part of the entire film.
I think that may have been one of mine, too.
And that was well done. Yep. I don't know, it was just adding extra pain to it. Again, it was a vignette that was well done. There were really cool vignettes and cool alternate takes on characters, but when you try to put them all to a story, it just fell really flat, and I felt like I was watching another Mummy movie at the beginning.
It did feel like a Mummy movie.
Yeah, so I mean, do you have any more thoughts on this movie? I mean, that's basically where I'm at.
Overall, I guess you can probably tell that we weren't a huge fan of this.
No.
I wouldn't even say worry about getting to the theater. Maybe if it's on your DVR, it gets on demand, and you're not having to purchase it. I feel like we're being pretty tough on the film, but it's just, overall, it's just very forgettable.
There's been enough times and enough criticism of enough films that you think at some point they're going to get it right.
Yes.
And the last two were better.
Yeah.
This fell right back into the third X-Men film for me. So I felt like you're getting there, you're getting better and better. First Class was a much better film.
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed First Class.
Let's kill off Havoc, by the way. Who I think is the new MacGyver, I noticed. I'm pretty sure that is the same actor. I think. Oh, wow. I can't swear to it. If it is, that's okay, because then it means maybe MacGyver wouldn't happen, even though it will.
Oh, wow.
Anyway, so I did have some fun moments. Just
like
it
is a theater.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I mean, it is a popcorn movie, and when I decided I'm just chucking out any expectations, I enjoyed bits and pieces, but I did have trouble pulling the story together.
Yeah, well, and I agree. Overall, I just think let's take a break from X-Men. We need to take a step back, regroup, have a fresh look. Let's wait a few years.
Yep.
I bet they won't, but we'll wait and see.
That's my thought. All right, so let's get into some recommendations. We'll keep this kind of quick. Normally I do a band, but I've got one that I'm going to throw in. It's a little different, a book.
You feeling all right?
I am. I'm not done with it yet. I'm about maybe a fourth of the way through it, but it's called The Vinyl Detective. Just something I found on a whim at Barnes & Noble, and it's really enjoyable. Basically a guy who's a vinyl, he's a record collector. One night in a drunken stupor, he makes some business cards that says he's a vinyl detective. Some woman comes to his door saying she works for her employer, wants to take him up on it, wants to find a particular album. Seems like that album is very rare, was recorded in odd circumstances with a record label that got into some problems with the wrong kind of people. And a lot of money is owed, and all of a sudden you start noticing, at least where I'm at in the book, they're starting to get chased around. People that he's talking to start dying, so you start wondering, what is the significance of this album? Who is he really getting this for, if he can find it? But the writing is really great, and the author, I cannot remember his name right now, but he did do a lot of writing on Doctor Who, Torchwood. Some of that takes place in England. But it's a good read so far for the summer. It's fun. So Vinyl Detective, what do you have?
Awesome. Well, it wouldn't be a show for me if I didn't mention something Star Wars related. If you haven't had a chance, go to StarWars.com. They have a weekly, it's called The Star Wars Show. It's just a quick update from Lucasfilm, giving us an insight on the making of the films, what's going on in the world of collecting, anything Star Wars related. They do a really nice job, and it gives you a snapshot of what's going on in the world of Star Wars.
Cool. Well, hey, that sounds like a good show. So, we gave honest opinions on X-Men, but we left you with some really good recommendations to check out to take the taste out of your mouth. So where can they find you on the web, Dan?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, simply at Dan Gaines. Please send us some emails at rewindheroes@gmail.com. What about you, Greg?
You can find me on Twitter at gcompton007. So, yeah, I think that is a wrap. So until next time, be kind.
And please rewind.